On today's episode of the Cryptoverse. Public service announcement. Something called the CloudBleed bug could mean your Bitcoin is at risk. So let's explore the problem and allow me to recommend a solution. Hardware wallets are the only way to truly store your cryptocurrency securely. Ledger provide a range of devices to suit all budgets and preferences. Check out my review of the Ledger Nano S by clicking on the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I am your host, Chris Coney. Today's the 27th of February 2017, so let us begin the episode. Another quick reminder about my Bitcoin feedback survey. It's running today and tomorrow, so tomorrow is the last day to enter. So if you want to win yourself some Bitcoin, click the link in the video description, fill out my feedback survey, and then wait until the weekend when I send the payouts. Another opportunity to get yourself some Bitcoin tips is by going to Friday's episode, this one about storage. And in that episode, I kind of invited everyone to give a funny description of what the Cryptoverse was, and then what I've decided to do with that is, if you go there and post a comment, watch the episode, listen to the rules and stuff, post a comment describing the Cryptoverse, and then if you want to be a voter in that kind of competition, I'm going to go with the most upvoted comment. So if you just want to be a voter, then go to that episode, read the various funny descriptions, do a thumbs up or thumbs down on your favorite ones and your least favorite ones, and I'll use that to determine which one I should feature on the show and which one should get featured along with the Bitcoin address to see if we can make everyone laugh. So go check that out and then I'll report back. Also, for those of you who missed it, yesterday's live stream recording is right here. It's now available. So if you want to go and check that out. I did a live coverage of the Peer Plays crowdfund opening yesterday. It's kind of funny. I did that at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30. And then less than 12 hours later, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doing another episode of the Cryptoverse. It kind of felt like a bit much. Usually I get a 2 days break on the weekend, but not this time. Check it in with coinmarketcap.com then. Today we have Ethereum as the biggest winner of the day with a nice gain of 6.57%. Now that kind of gain is very significant given that it's a coin that has over $1 billion market cap. It's actually one of only 2 coins that has over $1 billion market cap. Bitcoin is one of them, Ethereum is the other. And I think those are the only 2 coins to ever get over $1 billion of market cap. So well done to Ethereum, not Classic, Ethereum Core for doing that. It leaves an Ethereum Core token up at $14.48. Moving on down, we've got Dash continues there in 4th place by market cap, having displaced Monero and Litecoin and sits at $28.29. Steam, however, comes out by far as the biggest loser today. The percentage lost here is almost the same as Ethereum's percentage gain, except in reverse. So Steam is down 6.59% today, leaving a Steam token at just under 11 cents. Not a whole lot of trading activity on Steam though, just $62,000 in the 24-hour period, compared to Ethereum Core, that had a daily volume of 24.5 million. A quick look at the Bitcoin price chart today then, and we are holding above the previous all-time high of 1163. I think I mentioned this on Friday, but we had a bit of a shock crash there, but now it appears as though we've kind of got that out of our systems and everyone has accepted where we are now. And by that I mean like anyone with any significant holdings in Bitcoin should have heard of the fact that we're at the all-time high by now, and if they were going to do a quick dump, I personally would have expected that to happen quite soon after reaching the all-time high and not now, like 3 days later. Now, I don't really know what to tell you in terms of analysis. I said this would happen as we were going through the lead up to breaking that all-time high. I said this in previous episodes. The only thing I can really think to look out for now is like the most basic trend indicators, like higher highs and higher lows. So like breaking that 1220 high would be the next thing I'd look for. I do still think, though, that the price looks somewhat overextended from the trend line, and normally that's followed by a pullback to the trend line itself, which I suggested on Friday, I think it was, that would be around the $1,000 mark if you look at my chart here. And of course, if that happens, I'll be the first one in line to buy some. And now time for this segwit forecast. Here we are on the Litecoin network, and we have 19.34% support on the Litecoin network for segregated witness amongst miners. Now, I found a flaw in my projection formula the other day. I hadn't adjusted for the weekend days. Because I'm only logging data in the weekday, I had these gaps in the data at the weekend. So I've had to kind of reformulate the equation to account for that. So that means that the projections from here on are going to be even more accurate, as well as the data that I'm using being more comprehensive. So what it means today after readjustment is that we're looking at 81 more days before Litecoin activates segwit. It's actually the 19th of May when that will happen. And actually that puts it well within the deadline, which means that so far Litecoin will activate segwit in time. Bitcoin, on the other hand, we have 27% support today, and that puts the projected activation date out by 327 days. So it's going to activate in 327 days from now. That puts it the 19th of January 2018, meaning it will actually miss the deadline quite significantly. One final note on the whole Bitcoin scaling thing. Yesterday, the 26th of February, Tone Vays put out this video on his YouTube channel. I've earmarked this to watch. I haven't actually watched it yet, but it's entitled Roger Ver, representing Bitcoin Unlimited, versus Tone Vays, representing Segwit, Bitcoin Scaling Debate. And it's an hour and 12 minutes long, where I assume they're going to go back and forth and debate the two scaling technologies. So a lot of you have been asking me to do this, but it's a huge undertaking. So I'm like, okay, let me just refer to this resource now that it's appeared. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to go ahead and watch it. I'll put a link to this in the show notes as always. So if you watch it and then you let me know your thoughts, if you pick anything out of that show, then I'm interested in your insights as well. On to the news then, most graciously provided by the Merkle, themerkle.com. Now there are arguably bigger stories to cover today. However, I could not bring myself to let today go by without making absolutely sure everyone knows about this security issue and then giving my recommended solution. You know, if you've been watching the Cryptoverse for a while now, it's the thing I harp on about the media, is that all they ever do is tell you about problems, and they just leave you in the fear and the uncertainty of being under threat by something, and they just let you stew in it without actually ending the story with a recommended solution. And I think that is a tragedy. So I'm kind of hoping to set an example of what the media should be by, yes, covering the problems, but never leaving you there unless I recommend a solution. So here we go. It says, Bitcoin users need to be well aware of a recent CloudFlare issue, as it has affected quite a number of different cryptocurrency related services. With so many exchanges relying on CloudFlare, this is another example of why centralization needs to be avoided. Now, I like the fact that the Merkle took this opportunity to illustrate that this security issue is largely a problem of centralization. CloudFlare is this online service that I could use, say, on Cryptoversity if I wanted to protect me from, say, DDoS attacks. You know, where an attacker floods a website with traffic and attempts to take it offline. Now, I don't use CloudFlare on Cryptoversity, so Cryptoversity.com isn't affected by this bug, but you may well have used other Bitcoin-related services and sites that are affected, which is why we need to address this. I personally have used many of these Bitcoin services myself that have been affected by it, so I also I've taken steps to minimize this. Now, the fact that most websites and online services are hosted in centralized locations means that there is a central location to attack. That's kind of the point, right? And that's why companies use Cloudflare, because a DDoS attack isn't really effective if we use, like we spoke the other day about web torrents, for example, which is hosting in a decentralized way. That makes a DDoS attack diluted and pretty much ineffective. So that's the benefit of decentralized hosting. So moving swiftly onto this statistic here, it says Cloudflare managed nearly 10% of all web traffic, which means it makes it one of the, quote, backbones of the internet, so to speak. Yes, and it does say here that the problem expands far beyond the Bitcoin space and the Bitcoin industry. So the solution I'm going to recommend is a remedy for the whole problem, not just for Bitcoin, but of course, that's what we're doing here, talking about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. It goes on to say that among the information being leaked to anyone who requested it are passwords, cookies, messages, and any other type of personal information one can think of. The bug was discovered back in September of 2016. Well, yeah, that's a big problem. If some of our personal information has been leaked, there's really nothing we can do about that in retrospect. But we can take steps to minimize the impact when this happens. Now, of course, this is an ideal opportunity to plug the benefits of Bitcoin hardware wallets, since no matter what information leaks through the CloudBleed bug, Bitcoins stored in my hardware wallet and your hardware wallet are going nowhere without your explicit authorization. So you can check out my review of the Ledger Nano S wallet, and I'll put a link to that video in the video description as always. So then the article says that various Bitcoin companies issued warnings to their users to change their passwords immediately, as that remains the best course of action. The list of affected Bitcoin companies is rather long, and it includes virtually every platform most users ever come into contact with. Popular exchanges such as Coinbase, BTC-E, Quadriga CX, Kraken, Bitstamp, and Bitfinex. Now, in defense of these companies, they haven't done anything wrong by using CloudFlare. Let me just make that plain. They each subscribed to the services of a reputable third-party security company, which turned out to have a bug. And I just wanted to mention that so people don't go off and rant and rave at Coinbase, for example, or any other of these companies. And in the current business world, you have to trust a number of companies to help you run your business, me included. I just don't operate on the assumption that all of the service providers are going to be perfect, because that's just an impossible standard. Instead, I set myself up so that in the event of any of them having a problem, I have systems in place that minimize the impact. That's just being proactive, which is the first habit of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Be proactive. So just finishing off here, it says all Bitcoin users relying on a service affected by this leak need to upgrade their login details or update their login details as soon as possible. That much is certain. Right, so that leads us very nicely into the solution. I've already spoken about Bitcoin hardware wallets, so yes, I recommend you look into that. But in terms of the broader solution, I recommend a password manager app. Naturally, I use several of the online services that were affected by CloudBleed, so some of my passwords may have been leaked as well. The problem is that if you use the same password for all the services you use, only one of them has to leak your password in a situation like this to basically give the attacker the master key to your whole digital life. That's why it's good practice to use a different password for every single site that you have an account with. Then that way, if an attacker gets a password, they only gain access to that one site. So that's an example of something we can do to minimize the damage if someone we trust our information with, like Coinbase, is affected by a security issue like the CloudBleed thing. Now, of course, we use dozens and dozens of online services, so it's unreasonable to expect us to remember, dozens and dozens of different passwords, especially if we use complex passwords that are difficult to guess. So that brings me right back to password manager apps. I personally use an app called RoboForm, which is like $20 a year. And a lot of other people use a free alternative called LastPass. So not only would these apps remember a unique password for every single online service that you use, RoboForm at least will generate a complex password for every site that you use. So when I started getting emails from various Bitcoin services over the weekend saying that they may have been affected by the CloudBleed, I just logged into them, changed the password to one that RoboForm generated, and then logged out. Job done. Now, if you appreciate this advice and decide to go with RoboForm, I'd appreciate it if you could buy it through my affiliate link in the sources below, because that helps to fund the many experiments that I have to do in order to find and test these kinds of tools. I'll also put a link to the list of sites that use CloudFlare, along with a link to the detailed technical description of the bug if you're interested in reading the precise details of the problem from a technical point of view. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From just a few dollars a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. That is all for today, guys. I will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.